Stop. Stop avoiding the stairs. Just stop. Because what you're about to hear changes everything about why climbing stairs feels harder than it used to. I'm Dr. Emma Whitmore, and after 3 decades as an orthopedic surgeon, I have stood over operating tables, holding atrophied quadriceps in my hands, watching muscle that should have been thick and resilient look thin, pale, and defeated. You think your struggle with stairs is just getting older, maybe a little arthritis, maybe your heart. You're wrong. Here's what's actually happening inside your body. By the time I finish explaining this, you will never look at a staircase the same way again. When Robert, 72, arrived in my clinic, he wasn't complaining about pain. He was embarrassed. He had frozen halfway up the stairs at his granddaughter's recital, gripping the railing while people flowed around him. But let me take you back 6 months earlier. Robert was walking daily, following his doctor's advice, keeping his blood pressure controlled. On flat ground, he felt fine. What nobody told Robert was that every single year after age 50, he was losing up to 1% of his muscle mass and even more of his strength. Not dramatically, not painfully, quietly. Sarcopenia was the culprit, and it doesn't knock on the door. It infiltrates. It targets your quadriceps, your gluteal muscles, your hip stabilizers, the exact units required to lift your body onto a step and control your descent. Here's what I see when I operate on someone who has ignored this process for years. Thinning muscle fibers, reduced cross-sectional area, fat infiltrating tissue, like an occupying force, setting up camp inside a weakened city. That's not a theory. That's what the tissue looks like. It starts with reduced mechanical loading, which was caused by less resistance activity, which was triggered by the belief that walking alone is enough. Walking keeps you mobile. It does not defend you against muscle loss. Stair climbing is not walking. It demands power, balance, and eccentric control. Muscles lengthening under tension to lower you safely. When those fibers weaken, your body hesitates. Fatigue appears. Instability whispers. And then one day, like Robert, you stop halfway. Not bad luck, not genetics, sarcopenia. A 2022 study published in the Journal of Aging and Physical Activity followed over 800 adults aged 65 and older. More than 70% of those who struggled with stairs did so primarily because of muscle loss, not joint collapse, not heart failure. Muscle. Pause this for a moment and think about that. 70%. That's not a trend. That's a verdict. And I haven't told you the worst part yet. Because what's happening inside those muscle cells, the signaling pathways shutting down, the protein synthesis slowing, the neuromuscular connections weakening, that's the real crime scene. And until you understand that mechanism, any advice you've been given about just take it slow or hold the railing tighter is working with an outdated map. Here's the crime scene in full view. When I examine muscle biopsies from patients who have struggled with stairs for years, I don't just see smaller fibers. I see disrupted signaling, blunted repair, and neuromuscular junctions that have gone quiet. Sarcopenia is not simply less muscle. The first perpetrator is impaired mTOR signaling, the molecular switch that tells your body to build protein. After 50, that switch becomes resistant. It takes a stronger stimulus to flip it on. Without resistance, it stays dim. Think of mTOR as the general of your muscle-building army. If the general stops issuing commands, the soldiers stand down. Protein synthesis slows, fibers shrink, strength evaporates. A study sitting in the literature since 2022 in the Journal of Aging and Physical Activity followed more than 800 adults over 65 for multiple years. The finding was stark. Participants who performed progressive resistance training improved stair climbing power within 6 weeks. 6 weeks. Let me put that in real terms for you. That is 42 days to reverse a process most people assume is permanent. And yet standard advice for older adults still emphasizes walking alone. Walking does not robustly activate mTOR. Progressive load does. Exhibit A. But there's a second mechanism operating behind the lines: mitochondrial dysfunction. Your muscle cells rely on mitochondria to generate ATP, the energy currency that powers contraction. With age and inactivity, mitochondrial density declines. Oxidative stress rises. The NF-κB pathway becomes chronically activated, signaling inflammation that further suppresses protein synthesis. This is a siege from within. Your muscle city is under attack by energy depletion and inflammatory sabotage at the same time. When Patricia, 68, came to see me, she blamed her knees. She had no severe arthritis on imaging, but she described trembling legs halfway down the stairs in her split-level home. Let me take you back. Patricia walked 2 miles every morning. She believed she was protecting herself. What nobody explained was that descending stairs demands eccentric contraction, muscle lengthening under load, which requires high mitochondrial output and neuromuscular coordination. Her mitochondria were underpowered. Her mTOR signaling was muted. Every descent was a controlled fall. The tipping point came when she missed the last step and fractured her wrist trying to catch herself. Not clumsiness, not fate. Cellular energy failure layered on muscle atrophy. Pause this video and write down 2 words: load and mitochondria. If you don't address both, you're only fighting half the battle. Researchers publishing in journals like the Journals of Gerontology have demonstrated that resistance training increases mitochondrial biogenesis through activation of PGC1A. That's the pathway that rebuilds energy factories inside your muscle cells. Not theory. Documented physiology. And here's where institutional medicine lags. Guidelines emphasize aerobic activity for heart health, which matters, but they underemphasize progressive strength as a primary anti-sarcopenia intervention. Your doctor isn't wrong. They're working from a cardiovascular map when the battlefield is muscular. But there's a third layer, and it's the one that connects mTOR resistance and mitochondrial decline into a single coordinated collapse. We're not there yet. The third mechanism is neuromuscular disconnection, and this is where the case tightens. You can have muscle fibers. You can even have functioning mitochondria. But if the nerve signal that tells those fibers to fire is delayed, fragmented, or weak, strength never translates into movement. After age 60, motor neurons begin to drop out. The surviving neurons attempt to re-innovate abandoned fibers, but the process is incomplete and inefficient. The neuromuscular junction, the communication bridge between nerve and muscle, becomes less responsive. Acetylcholine release declines. Receptor density changes. The signal that once felt instant becomes hesitant. Think of it as a command center under siege. Orders are issued, but the messengers are intercepted. By the time the instruction reaches the muscle, the step has already demanded force. This is why people say, "My legs just don't respond the way they used to." That's not imagination, that's physiology. When Gerald, 74, came into my office, he had already installed a stair lift, not because he couldn't physically lift his body once, but because his confidence was gone. He described a moment at his church when he stepped down from a platform and his knee buckled, not from pain, but from a split-second delay in contraction. Let me take you back. Gerald had been told his muscle loss was normal aging. He reduced activity to avoid embarrassment. Reduced activity further suppressed mTOR signaling, worsened mitochondrial density, and accelerated motor neuron dropout. The 3 mechanisms fed each other. Load decreased, protein synthesis declined, energy production faltered, neural signaling weakened. A coordinated collapse. The tipping point wasn't dramatic, it was subtle. A half-second delay. That's all it takes on stairs. Not bad luck, not inevitable aging. Disuse layered on biological vulnerability. Now here's the part that changes everything. Your body was trying to defend you. Satellite cells, muscle stem cells, were attempting repair. Growth hormone and IGF-1 signaling were still present, though reduced. The nervous system was sprouting collateral branches to rescue abandoned fibers, but without progressive resistance, those rescue attempts fail. The defense forces arrive without reinforcement. The battlefield stays lost. A meta-analysis published in the British Journal of Sports Medicine demonstrated that adults over 65 who performed structured resistance training 2 to 3 times weekly increased lower body strength by more than 30% within 12 weeks. 30%. Let me put that in real terms. That can mean the difference between gripping a railing in fear and climbing confidently without it. That's not incremental. That's transformative. And yet most people are still told to be careful instead of get stronger. You did everything you were told. You walked. You stayed active. The instructions were incomplete. Here's what changes when you address all 3 mechanisms simultaneously. mTOR, signaling reactivates with sufficient load, mitochondrial density increases with repeated muscular demand, and neuromuscular coordination improves because nerves respond to challenge. Strength is not a luxury adaptation, it is a survival adaptation. Before I give you the full protocol, I need you to do one thing. Stand up from your chair right now without using your hands. Feel how fast you rise. Feel how controlled your descent is when you sit back down slowly for 5 full seconds. That descent, that eccentric control, is the key to stair safety. Now I'm going to introduce the structure, not the full prescription yet. 3 movements. Sit to stand performed slowly to reactivate quadriceps and gluteal hypertrophy through eccentric emphasis. Lateral step-ups on a low platform to recruit gluteus medius and restore pelvic stability during single leg stance. Step downs emphasizing slow lowering to retrain eccentric control and neural timing. These are not random exercises. Each one maps directly onto one of the 3 mechanisms. Most people skip to the exercises without understanding why they work. Don't. Because if you rush the load, if you ignore form, if you fail to progressively increase resistance, you blunt mTOR activation and the cascade stalls. Hold on, we're not finished. Now I'm going to give you the exact protocol, but I need you to understand one more thing first. Now we move to the prescription pad. Not suggestions, not vague advice. The protocol. Everything I'm about to tell you maps directly onto the 3 mechanisms we've established: mTOR resistance, mitochondrial decline, and neuromuscular disconnection. Component 1, progressive sit to stand. Its job is to reactivate mTOR signaling through sufficient mechanical tension. You will use a chair that allows your knees to bend to roughly 90 degrees. Cross your arms over your chest, rise powerfully in 1 second, then lower yourself for a full 5 seconds. Not 3, 5. That slow descent maximizes eccentric loading, the stimulus that muscle fibers require to hypertrophy after 50. Perform 3 sets of 8 repetitions 3 times per week, with at least 1 rest day between sessions. When you can complete all repetitions without fatigue by the final 2 reps, hold a dumbbell at your chest equal to 5% of your body weight, not random weight. Calculated load, that's how you overcome anabolic resistance. Component 2, lateral step-up. This targets the gluteus medius and hip stabilizers to restore pelvic control and prevent the knee collapse that precedes falls. Use a 4-inch step initially. Step sideways up with one leg while keeping the trailing foot off the ground. Control the descent for 4 seconds. 3 sets of 10 repetitions per side, twice weekly. When stable, increase step height to 6 inches, then 8. The form matters more than height. Knees track over toes, hips level. This is how you rebuild single leg command. Component 3, weighted step down. This directly retrains eccentric control and neuromuscular timing for stair descent. Stand on a step 8 inches high. Slowly lower 1 foot toward the floor over 5 seconds while keeping most of your weight on the elevated leg. Lightly tap the heel, then return to standing. 3 sets of 8 per side, twice weekly. Once controlled, hold dumbbells totaling 10% of your body weight. This is where mitochondrial demand increases and neural recruitment sharpens. Now the frequency, Perform these exercises on non-consecutive days, totaling 3 sessions per week. Total session time, 20 minutes. That's it. Not daily marathons. Consistency over intensity. I know what some of you are thinking. My doctor will disagree. Screenshot the British Journal of Sports Medicine meta-analysis I referenced. Show it as a conversation. Most physicians, when presented with clear mechanism and data, will engage. If they dismiss it without review, that tells you something. Another objection: this sounds expensive. Compare it to Gerald's stairlift installation and hospital bills after his fall. Those costs reach tens of thousands. A pair of adjustable dumbbells cost less than a single copay over time. That's arithmetic. Another question from the courtroom: can I just walk more instead? No. Walking does not provide the mechanical tension threshold needed to reverse anabolic resistance. Address one mechanism and ignore the others, and you slow decline. You do not stop it. Dorothy, 69, began this exact protocol after avoiding the upstairs of her home for a year. 6 weeks later, she reported climbing all 13 steps without gripping the railing. 12 weeks later, she carried laundry up confidently. Not superhuman, reconditioned. Her neuromuscular timing improved. Her eccentric control returned. Her confidence followed physiology. Before you do anything else, leave a comment. Tell me how many stairs are in your home and whether you avoid them. Every comment tells YouTube this case matters, and I read them. I build future investigations around what you tell me. Now share this directly with someone over 60 who grips a railing a little tighter each month. Somewhere right now, someone is halfway up their staircase wondering what changed. This is what changed. Subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications, because the next case covers balance loss and vestibular decline, another hidden mechanism that sabotages independence. I've put together the complete case file, the protocol, progression plan, and cited studies. Linked below. Download it. Bring it to your next appointment. Before you go, one word in the comments. Type strong if you're starting today. Type ready if you're already training. Type send if you're sharing this now. Strength is not youth, it is strategy. And now you have it.